All right, we're rolling. I think we're rolling on YouTube. Let's see here. Get the stream going. I think I'm going to stream into Facebook tonight as well. So hang on a second. Stay with me. And okay, that is muted. Okay, good. All right. Hey, Siraj, how are you?
Hey Jeff, I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Let me just go ahead and get the record. All right, we're recording now on the Zoom side. We're streaming it to YouTube. Welcome to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. It is Sunday night. Should be right in the 8 o'clock hour, p.m. Pacific time, straight up. A little, I'm going to preview. I've got an interesting story to tell tonight just because, this very strange experience happened earlier in the week, and I'm just going to talk about it after I read tonight's tip. But let me go ahead and I'm going to get a live going as well. Let's do that. Give me just 1 second to get this rolling here. Start live video. All right, I think we're going live as well. Hello, everyone. We're doing Get a Clue in 52 Sunday night. It's 8:01 now p.m. I'm joined by Siraj and Charlie on the Zoom side. If you want to join on Zoom, very easy to get here. It's just www.tinyurl.com/ backslash get a clue, GETAKLU. So tinyurl.com/ get a clue. No pun intended there, as a preview for this story that I have to share with you. Anyway, so Get a Clue in 52. This is a cool night because it's the 10th tip in the sales section, 10th and final tip in the sales section. We started the year in communication, then we went on to marketing. There were 12 tips in marketing, 10 tips in communication, then another 10 tips in networking, and then 10 tips in sales. And then next week, we start the last 10 tips of the year, last 10 tips of the book. And it's the section on accountability, which is, it's like when somebody says, Jeff, what's your favorite ice cream? I always say, whichever one I'm eating. So what's your favorite tip? Well, whichever one I'm on. But having said that, it's arguable, debatable that accountability is my favorite section, and the tips in the accountability section are my favorite in the book. It's debatable. There's arguments that can be made. Let me go ahead and review all 9 tips that we've covered in sales so far, and then I will get into the word for word read of tonight's tip, and then we'll have some group interaction, honoring the time that Siraj and Charlie are taking to come online to see what kind of questions you guys might have. And I'll tell this story, this fascinating story that happened earlier in the week. Okay, so we're in the sales section, and tip number 1 in this section is on page 82 in the second edition of Get a Clue in 52. And tip number 1 is to build rapport. And tip number 2 is to diagnose. I'm not going to elaborate on these. I'm going to list them off because there's 9 of them. I've been elaborating on them thoroughly enough for the past several weeks. So let me just say, tip number 1 is to build rapport. Tip number 2, diagnose. Tip number 3, get leverage. Tip number 4 is to drop the subject matter expertise. Tip number 5, I love this, no whiteboard is safe when Jeff has dry erase markers, right? Drop the subject matter expertise. Tip number 5, know your 1s, 2s, and 3s. 1s, 2s, and 3s. Tip number 6 is develop multiple calls to action, multiple places you want people to go, depending on who they are and all the work that you've done to build rapport and diagnose and figure out what they want. Tip number 7, keep it simple, salesperson. KISS. If you've ever heard KISS before, I joke, I say keep it simple, salesperson. And tip number 8 then is understand disc and motivators. And even if it's not disc and motivators, Myers-Briggs or Strength Finders or any of the 3,000 psychometric assessments or tools or instruments that are out there in the marketplace, but you got to understand difference in behavioral styles and be able to adapt your presentation, your sales, your listening to the different people that you'll be speaking to. And that got us to last week. Tip number 9 was true sales force. That's right, Cookie. My dog Cookie is saying, yeah, roof. All right. True sales force. So that's really people, developing those relationships, referral partners, being able to white label, satisfied customers, on and on. That's true sales force. And that brings us to tonight, tip number 10, reading isn't enough. So let me go ahead and read word for word tip number 10, which shows up on page 97 of the second edition of Get a Clue in 52, available on Amazon.com for last year's price, $20.20. Hurry before it raises to next year's price, $20.21. Thank you. All right, here we go. Word for word, page 97. Be clear. Reading about sales is mandatory if you want to be great at sales, but equally clear that reading is not enough to be great. You must also get training constantly, several times a year if possible. Putting yourself into a live sales training environment forces you to act out what you learn. If the training is any good, it will force you to speak, to role play, and to create dialogues and product trees. A great sales training will have a combination of instruction and coaching to support your learning and growth or transformation from a behavioral perspective. A great sales training will address any mindset issues you may be bringing to the sale. A great sales training might also provide video recording of your role plays and presentations. A great sales training will be led by people who love sales and have mastered sales with over 10,000 hours, to reference Malcolm Gladwell's standard. A great sales training will break down what you are doing well, poorly, not doing at all, and should not be doing at all. And that same great training will build you back up with the ability to execute sales mastery, storytelling, concern addressing, rapport building, diagnosis, pre-qualifying, trial closing, emotionally connecting, attention getting, leveraging, seed planting, closing slash, no pun intended, closing slash moving people to action, and more. Contact me if you want to learn how you can attend the best sales training I have ever experienced. It has everything above and more. Hello, Mikey Adam Cohen is out there. Love you too, brother. Thanks for joining in on Get a Clue in 52. I just got done reading the 10th tip in the sales section. That's tip number 42 overall. That means we're sprinting to the finish line. There are 10 weeks left in the year, 10 tips left in the book, and I got 10 weeks left to write the third edition of Get a Clue in 52. How many of you think I'll get it out by January 1st? Anyway, I'm working on another book right now called The Integrity Game, which is very, very important to me. So that's priority, but we're going to see if we can finish both. So there we go. That is the tip for tonight. And now I want to go ahead and get off of the headset so that we can hear you guys' conversation live. We are, it's very simple to come onto the Zoom. It's just www.tinyurl.com/getaklu, GETAKLU, tinyurl.com/getaklu. And you can join Siraj and Charlie, who's joining from South Africa, as always. Thank you guys so much for coming on board. Do you guys have any questions or comments before I get into this story that I'm kind of, weirdly itching to tell?
You can go ahead, Coach Jeff.
Oh, hang on. Not hearing your audio, Charlie. Give me a second here.
I can hear you, Charlie.
There we go. All right. Should be good now. Charlie, go ahead.
No, as I was saying, you can go ahead, Coach Jeff. Very interested to hear that experience as well.
Yeah, well, okay. So here goes, you guys. Charlie, you've been following for a while. My parents lived in Las Vegas before they passed. My brother's still there. I've been going there periodically to handle matters since my parents passed, including refinancing their house and getting a condo. I ended up getting a condo, ironically, right near the golf course that I always golf at. So I'm a member of the University Club down here in San Diego. I'm attached to Club Corp. So that gives me access to all of the golf courses in the network. And the one that I can access through my app in Las Vegas is Canyon Gate. So, I'd been golfing there a lot last year while, just for mental health, just to get out, and even golfing in 105-degree heat was still pleasurable. Yeah, it's very dry in Vegas, so it's still tolerable on, believe it or not. And I'd been to that course many times, including the day I put my parents into, the day they came and got him and put him into a group home. And then my dad passed a week later. We went out golfing that day. So that golf course means a lot to me energetically, as like a place of mental health and serenity. And it's attached to the trauma that I went through, if you will, if you can call it that, of dealing with my parents. And like one time, very shortly after both parents passed, my brother and I were golfing on that golf course, and there was these hummingbirds hovering over our golf balls on the last hole. And, you start to think, hey, mom and dad are visiting, that kind of weird stuff, right? Well, the last time that I was in Vegas before this past week, you can see like the bag over there, Global Forum of Education and Leadership. I'll show you guys right here. Can you see that bag over there on the side, that white bag, Global Forum of Education and Leadership? I was there at that conference delivering a keynote speech and receiving an Excellence in Education Award. And I was staying at the Palace Station, which is really close to the condo that I bought for my brother. And not only was I like giving this keynote and getting this award, but I was also moving my brother into the condo and closing the escrow and getting him and the roommate out of my parents' place and renting out my parents' place to a new renter, and then closing escrow on the condo and moving my brother in and putting stuff in storage. And this is all, Charlie, while AJ was in Atlanta, Joey, Joey, of course, I flew Joey into Atlanta to stay with AJ while I had to go back to Vegas. Right? So this is all just context, right? It was like kind of, I felt like a it's like Herculean effort, if you will. Like it just felt like monumental effort, and there was a lot of energy around it. But anyway, when I was there in June, that week, one night I was having dinner, and hey, Voltaire, I want to say hello to Voltaire, who's on board. So I'm having dinner one night, and this is in June when I'm getting the award, giving the keynote, closing escrow on the condo that I bought for my brother, renting out my parents' house and all of that. And the guy sitting next to me at the place we're having dinner, he's like, oh, you come in, we're just having a conversation. You come into town? Oh yeah, when I come into town, I golf Canyon Gate. And he says, well, oh, OJ lives there. And I'm like, what, get out of town? OJ Simpson? And he's like, yeah, he lives on the second hole. It's like, I don't think he's allowed to be a member. And forgive me for laughing because humor is the way I'm coping with like the spooky, creepy element of the story, right? But anyway, it's like, I don't think he's allowed to be a member, but he lives there on the second hole, right there. And I knew exactly, I could visualize because I'd golfed there so many times. So I was in Vegas this past week because a couple of reasons. I wanted to look at investment properties. I also wanted to get my suits that I had left there. I didn't fly back to Atlanta with them. I'm going to need my suits later this month and pick up the award and visit with my brother's roommate to see how they're doing and all of that. So I made an excuse to stay there for a couple of days to, justify the drive. And I wanted to play golf. So my brother, he's working, he couldn't play golf. I booked by myself to go out there. And I get paired up with one other guy. So he's an individual by himself, I'm by myself. And we get to the second hole and the foursome in front of us, they're not done yet. So I just I turned my back to the fairway, because we had to wait before we could hit. And I'm now looking at these two houses that are right there on the second hole. And I'm wondering, I wonder which one of these is OJ's house. And I'm just standing there thinking to myself, right, in my own head, as you might, Siraj, and I'm like, I wonder which one of these is OJ's house. Would he go with that one or would he go with that one? I mean, I don't know. I can't really tell. And I was just thinking about it for a little bit. And then I thought, to be funny, I thought, well, if OJ's looking out his window right now, he's probably wondering, hey, who's the weirdo looking at my house, right? But then I thought, well, maybe, OJ's probably one of these guys that any attention is good attention, right? And I'm just having this conversation in my head with myself about OJ. So fast forward 9 holes later, we finished the 11th hole. And usually on the back 9, I've had a couple of beers on the first 9 and I'm feeling nice. We get to the back 9, light a cigar. So I'm a couple beers in, got a cigar. And when we get to when we finish the 11th hole, we're near the gate for the whole complex. Okay. And it's one of those deals where you got to drive a cart across the road, right? Where cars go, to get to the next tee box. And I finished first. So I get in my cart and I go, and I'm stopped at the cross, right? And I'm waiting for the guy that I was playing with to catch up to me. And all of a sudden I see this black car coming up. It was like a Bentley coming up onto my left. So I was going to wait for my playing partner, the guy that I was paired up with. And I'm waving the car, and the car slows down and it stops and it waves me. And I did the no, I insist wave, right? And I look in and I see that it's an African-American driver. And I'm like, no way, that can't be OJ. As soon as I see, I'm like, what if that's OJ? That would be I'm just thinking to myself, that would be so weird if that was OJ. So anyway, I do the I insist wave, the car waved, I waved, and then who's going to go? I'm like, no, you go. No, you go. You know how that goes, right? I insist. right? And he goes by and he doesn't drive at a normal pace. He's driving like really, really, really slow. So I like lean my head down, in the cart to like look in. And sure enough, we lock eyes and it's OJ. And I first I don't know why, and this is part of the reason that I want to tell this story and get it out and have a conversation around it. I've shared this with a bunch of people. It's hard to make meaning of this. I've been around a lot of like celebrities or famous people in my life. Shaquille O'Neal, those are his shoes. He thinks I'm his good luck charm. He's pulled me on stage before. I mean, I've met famous athletes and or musicians, like my favorite musicians. Like we got a beautiful picture with Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Trevor Hoffman or Tony Gwynn, or just I'm not. It's not foreign or weird that I would meet or be in the same place as a celebrity or somebody with big energy. So I'm processing like this. I'm concurrently like, whoa, this is weird. Did I manifest this? Did I bring this about because I thought of OJ on the second hole? And why would I want to bring this about? But then again, it's a human being, right? And I'm watching what's going on, and I'm seeing just in the way that he's driving his car that he's like looking. He's got radar. I just feeling in my bones. He's got his radar open for attention and energy. And instead of going, oh my God, that's OJ, I didn't do that. And be like, hey, you murderer. I didn't do that. I just said, hey, I didn't yell out OJ at the top of my lungs either. But when I saw him, I yelled out juice. And he, smiled and he waved, and then he starts putting by. And he didn't just like wave and drive along. He like was hitting his brakes. And I'm thinking, oh no, he wants to get out of the car. He wants to keep the interaction going. I just wanted to wave and, hey, that's funny. I saw OJ Simpson on the course. What a novel thing, whatever. And then the playing partner comes up behind me. He's like, who's that? And I said, it's OJ Simpson. He's like, you know OJ? And I'm like, I don't know OJ. He's like, well, why are you yelling at him? Like you know him, like you're best friends or something. I'm like, well, I'm not. I just think it's novel that he drives by, and what else am I gonna say? And I don't know, like it was all happening in real time. But I said, listen, the truth is, man, he's a human being. He's probably love starved, and like really love starved. And if anybody says hello to him in any way with even a neutral face or a smile, that's probably like the cat's meow to him, to be, just acknowledged as a human being. If he repels other people most of the time anyway. So I mean, I'm processing all of this in real time as it's happening, and I'm telling the guy, I'm like, look, maybe it has a little to do with my personality. I'm loud, I'm jovial. Hey, Juice, as he's driving down the corner, I'm like, good luck, man, good luck. Because the guy needs good luck, doesn't he? Right? Like you got to kind of wish everybody the best, I guess. Weird as it is, and you can't get your mind off of the fact that he most likely is guilty of double murder, even though he was acquitted, and then the robbery that actually got him in jail, but now he's a free man roaming around golf courses in Vegas, right? It's just very surreal as it's going on. But I explained to my playing partner, this cool guy named Win Liu, right? He's a lawyer, I think, from Northern California, who was down in Vegas. And I said, look, it has nothing to do with my communication skills. I think there's just a love-starved human being, and any attention is like crack rock for this guy. And I said, you're an introvert. You're a lawyer. You're kind of quiet. You could have yelled stop, and he probably would have gotten out of the car and taken pictures with you and hoped that you post pictures telling the world that he's a nice guy. That so it's not me. It's about the love-starved status of this human being. And sure enough, what happened and we get to the 12th tee, and OJ he had made this left-hand turn. He'd crossed the street, in front of us, and then he made the left-hand turn and he goes out the gates. And we were just laughing, like, hey, what a weird experience. Ha ha ha, that was unique. Ha ha ha. That'd be fun to tell people. And before we could tee off, he turned around and came back in through the gate. So instead of leaving and going wherever he was going, once he got through the gate, he did a U-turn and came back in through the gate. Now I'm thinking like, uh-oh, are we in trouble? Or I'm like, what's going on? And he's driving slowly and he rolls his window down and he yells out, hey, I want to see that swing. And I'm like, oh God, are you serious? Like, anyway, so I dropped my club right there and I went and I got the phone. I'm like, all right, this is got to be picture time. This is, OJ wants attention. We're gonna have a hard time getting out of this, even if we wanted to. But I didn't really feel compelled to get out of it. I actually thought that this is hard to explain, but I'm gonna say this like publicly and vulnerably. I felt like it was puppeteered by a higher power. I think that I'm a very loving person. Charlie, do you know anybody on the planet that has as much love, as I do, or more love than I do, or loves as much and as hard or as I do, like walks the walk when we talk about love and the willingness to be vulnerable and right? So I mean, yes or no?
No,
I see
no, no,
myself that
no,
way. I think love is
no,
the
no, no.
secret sauce
I
for
think
everything
I think
do.
you're one of the very few people that I know. I knew
So,
one other guy. I knew
so
just one other guy.
yeah, so
May his soul rest in peace.
yeah, so if I see myself that way, if I see myself as one of the most loving people on the planet, like I've been blessed with an enormous capacity for love, and that my job is to spread more love into the world. I call it the integrity game, or through coaching, consulting, training, speaking, books, whatever. However I do it, I believe that my job is to love hard, and raise the love vibration. I'm a light bearer. I see myself that way, right? And then all of a sudden, the most love-starved creature on the planet rolls right in front of me, and by simply acknowledging him, he couldn't move on. He had to turn around and come back. And so I had to accept like a responsibility or a co-authoring of the event. I didn't feel trapped by OJ or suffocated or in danger, or anything like that. That I thought about since, by the way, after the event was over, I'm like, wow, and I'm still kind of processing the whole thing on a spiritual level. So anyway, back to the story part, he makes now a right-hand turn and he comes back. And now, if the fairway is in front of me, OJ in his car is right behind me, having rolled down his window, and I turn around and I got my phone and I'm like, what's up, Juice? Did you forget something? What made you come back? He's like, I want to see that swing. And I'm like, you don't want to see ugly. You want to get some pictures. You want some interaction, man. Come on. And I just started, I walked towards him and he gets out of the car and he walks around the side of the car. And next thing I know, boom, my hand is inside of his. And next thing I know, I'm hugging OJ Simpson. And it is surreal. And he's big and he's strong and he looks good and he's in good shape. He was smiling, he was happy. And I just, talked to him, and then my playing partner came over, and, I took, got the phone to take the picture, and OJ was vain. He's like, hey, no, we gotta point our face towards the sun so it gets us here. Let's move a little bit this way. And I'm laughing. I'm like, oh my God, you've done this before, huh, Juice? And that's exactly what he wanted. He wanted us to interact with him, take pictures, post it, and say, hey, I talked to OJ, and he wants the world to think he's a good guy, and like right there in the middle of the 11th and 12th, we still got to keep the game going because there's people behind us. So we can't stay very long, thank God, right? But when I talked to my sister-in-law who lives in Vegas, she says, yeah, there's these two places that he goes all the time. He's got a set entourage of people, like an inner circle of people that he's with all the time. But otherwise, most of the time he repels people. And he must be really excited to have some new person pay any attention to him. So I was right, in what my intuition was, that this was just a human being, love-starved for good reason, for obvious reason. He deserves whatever bed he's made, he's got to sleep in it. But whether it's OJ Simpson or Shaquille O'Neal or Trevor Hoffman or Vicente Fox, president of Mexico, or any of the famous people, Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or John Travolta, or any of the famous people that I've been around face to face, and have hugged in my life, it's still me being me in those moments. It's still me attracting big energy people, but also being immediately being able to see them. I reached out to one of my coaches that I go to for like readings or clairvoyance or, spiritual energy work, right? And I told her that, hey, this happened and I'm not sure what to make of it. And she helped me understand that, from her perspective, from a spiritual and energetic perspective, it's just me being around big celebrity, big energy people, but seeing through all of that to their real essence and being able to connect lightning quick on the human element. And it didn't take long for me to realize that murderer, no murderer, misdemeanor, assault and battery, robbery at gunpoint, whatever. He was still a human being that was love starved, and I happen to be a human being with a huge capacity for love, And, I even talked earlier today with somebody, a friend of mine, about it. And I said, God put me in that position, or God put OJ in that position. And she was like, I don't think it's very godlike. Well, just because, everything is godlike, and it's just like, I'm not defending OJ, and I'm not a fan of, but I'm just sharing this story because it was amazing, spiritual, energetic, random, novel, spooky, creepy, and hysterically funny occurrence. I mean, for the funny part, right? I was sending out text messages to people like, hey, you think your golf game is bad? This guy's got a really mean slice. Or, hey, he watched me tee off on 12. He said I murdered the ball. Or, hey, everybody wants to be a good person. Zoom in on the picture. Can't you see the conviction in his eyes? And anyway, I would ask him if he wanted to hit, but I swing left-handed, and we know that my glove wouldn't fit him, right? Anyway, so there's 4 OJ jokes right there. Okay, I digress. And I feel weird about it, but it's hysterically, and it is what it is. And maybe the humor is the coping mechanism. But the other thing about it is, Charlie, let me ask you a question. For how many years have you heard me say that some people go for the jugular, but I go for the hugular? And now all of a sudden,
I cannot say how many times, Coach Jeff. And,
okay, well, now all of a sudden I was hugging the most representative jugular icon in the history of going for jugulars. Like, one of the most famous murderers in the history of the planet happened to be in my arms, feeling a Klu hug. And my hugs are no joke. Like, I give good hugs. I send love through hugs. I don't play around. I don't do like the quick pat on the back. Like, I embrace, I hug. And so that happened. And I have mixed feelings about it, mixed energies about it. But that's the story. And then OJ went back towards his home. He didn't even turn around and leave. So I'm almost like, there's a part of me that almost thinks that he did see me looking at him on the second hole and could easily calculate when I'd be crossing and timed it to come by. Like, hey, there's that guy wondering if it's my house. That guy was probably told that I live here. And if I time it right and drive by, that guy, if he sees me, he'll yell out to me and I'll get some attention. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the starvation ran that deep, and if the starvation bred that level of calculation, right? Because OJ never went anywhere. He just drove by, left, turned around, came back, got out of his car, hugs and pictures, and then he went home. And it was just a surreal experience. It was creepy, spooky. Let me say hello real quick. Joni, wow. Joni, I see you out there, and Voltaire and Mikey and anybody else on the Facebook side. If you want to come on board to the Zoom side, it's tinyurl.com/ no pun intended. Now you guys understand why that's funny. www.tinyurl.com/ get a clue, GETAKLU. But what are we doing? We read the 42nd tip in Get a Clue in 52, the last tip in the sales section. And next week we're going to start accountability. But I thought, wow, let me just take this opportunity to kind of publicly tell my OJ story. I have one now. I didn't have one before. For years I've been saying some people go for the jugular, but I go for the hugular. Ha, ha, ha. And all of a sudden that shit wasn't funny anymore. It was like all of a sudden spiritually very, very, very serious and hysterical and spooky and creepy and all kinds of other adjectives. So there it is. That's my OJ story, ladies and gentlemen, on Get a Clue in 52. And I'm joined by Suraj and Charlie. Do you guys have any questions or comments or anything that you guys want to add to tonight's episode?
You have a go, Suraj.
Please, Charlie, after you.
Okay, great. Wow, what an amazing story, Coach Jeff. And, at the end, you mentioned that could OJ have been watching you, looking, and it, it just kind of resonated. When one is vibrating at a very high level, that energy travels for forever, for miles, like hundreds, thousands of kilometers. Like, I mean, whenever I speak to you, for one, I can feel the love. Also being a bit of an empath, right?
Yeah.
I can sense that. I mean, I can get to networking events and just the energy of someone right on the other side of a room, right?
Yeah.
I can feel that energy and connect right across that room. And at some time, I might not, again, people call me a social butterfly buzzing around a networking event. It somehow happens that that person might come from across the room, and it might be a very famous person as well. It's happened a couple of times. Might be a higher level, a very high level person. So yes, could be OJ might not have been looking to say who's that guy across the
right, but he felt it.
The energy you had that you were exuding kind of attracted him to that. So you could have been doing something, watching TV or something, but that energy is like, hey, somebody's watching. You know that intuition thing?
Mm-hmm.
And then he went out, peeped through the window, and oh, okay, there's that guy. So he gets in his car and comes over. That attraction is, I need to meet this guy.
Yeah, it's like interesting. Between the second and 11th hole, that's like 9 holes. It's almost 2 hours of golf, right? So he would have to time it if he's like, oh, this whoever's staring at me, I don't know. I'm just making it's just a feeling in my gut. I have no proof of it.
I can say is that it is aligned.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way it's not aligned. As you mentioned, that he's love-starved, right? And here comes a guy who is one of the most loving persons around. And he feels that energy, that there are people that actually love me. And I would actually like to know, when you go out there again, and if you met up with him and went to the little hangout place, I'm hearing a different story already.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I cannot tell you that I haven't thought about what happens the next time I go into that course, and will I encounter him again, and then what? I'll jump off that bridge when I get to it, right?
Yeah. I'm just thinking that the story he will tell. You mentioned that he's repelling people.
Oh, right. Well, I would imagine he is, yeah.
Now, even though people are wanting to give him some love and support, he still repels them. Because it might be
there's some people that know, there's some people, Charlie, that recognize his name but really don't know, like younger people. Like I'm 49.
Exactly.
So somebody that's in between their 20s and 30s, like, oh, OJ Simpson, I've heard that name before, but they don't know. And if they see him out in the club in Vegas doing whatever, they, like my sister-in-law was telling me a story about a friend of hers who was kind of like throwing herself at him with the pictures and this and that, and didn't really realize when nobody was liking her post. It's like, hey, he's, and so it's there's obviously polarizing. Just in me telling people about it, just among my circle of friends, I'm getting different reactions. I think it's fascinating now as a social experiment case study to see what people's initial reactions are. Like people that, especially people that project that they're religious and that they're God-fearing and that they're church going. Right. So now about like, well, where's forgiveness? The first thing would be like,
line, where's the love? Where's the love?
Where's atonement? Where's redemption? Where's correctional? Where, like, do we just get to like feel better about ourselves because there's worse people in the world than we are? Or do we stay loving all the time? And I'm not saying I have the answer, and I'm not judging anybody myself. I'm not judging OJ. Like, it's not for me to judge. It's OJ's maker and the correctional system and all of that. I will tell you this. There's a gentleman that I do know. As a matter of fact, I'm going to screen share on this, Charlie. I was sending text messages to a friend. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah. No, not yet. Yeah, I can.
I've got it.
Okay. All right. So let me see if I can get to this here. Give me a second. Hang on. I put a bunch of pictures together of, see, this is Tony Gwynn Jr. So Tony Gwynn's one of the greatest baseball players of all time. And that's Tony Gwynn Jr. Got to meet him. Frank Shakewitz, he started Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's really accessible. He was out in the public a lot before he passed away. But there's somebody else I want to show you guys. His name is Azim Kamisa. This is just taking a while. Give me a second. Oh, that's my,
I've got a tip for you on that, Coach Jeff. I'll share it with you.
There's Dwayne Wade at the Laker game. There's my wife and I back in the day. There's Mel Gibson. There's Trevor Hoffman. Okay, there's Shaq, right? There's me on stage with Shaq. So this is the point that I'm making. Like, I'm around a lot of people with big energy. That's not the big deal. But this gentleman right here, I hope you can see this guy. Where is he? Oh, I'm on stage with Bret Michaels right there from Poison. What a silly event that was. There's Richard Dreyfuss. This is the President Vicente Fox. I mean, I can keep going, but I was trying to cue up the picture of Azim Kamisa. He started the Tariq Foundation. There he is, right there. You guys see, and there's Pat O'Brien from CBS Sports and all of that. But Azim Kamisa, oh, I just scrolled past him a little bit. Oh, and there's the picture with Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Look, you can see the love right there, right? I don't know if you're a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. But anyway, my point is Azim Kamisa, I'm going to stop sharing now because this is just going slower than I want it to go. His son was murdered. And he went into jail and forgave the murderer of his own son and started the Tariq Foundation and did, you guys with me? Like, hang on.
AJ, you blinked, they got to do it all over again.
Okay. All right, there we go. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, so you want to talk about mental fortitude and a capacity for love and sticking to your religious or your spiritual ground, like, the principle of forgiveness, right? The problem with forgiveness is it requires a guilty verdict. That's the Kluby snack, Charlie. Are you ready?
Yes, Coach.
One of the biggest problems with forgiveness is that it usually requires a guilty verdict, and nobody wants that. You hearing me? You want me to repeat it? One of the problems with forgiveness is that it usually requires a guilty verdict. How do you forgive someone who isn't first guilty? And then who decides what guilt is? Who takes that power upon themselves to decide somebody else is guilty of something? Do you follow?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What a huge thing. Now, somebody doesn't have to be guilty or found guilty or proven guilty for you to have forgiveness in your heart, right? And just because you think somebody did something wrong doesn't mean that they did, or right? Now, in the case of OJ, we all know that's wrong. We all probably agree he's guilty, and we all probably agree it's disgusting and horrifying and terrible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if I go to quote church on Sundays and I believe in the word of the book, right? Then human being, all lives matter and all that stuff, right? If he's alive, he matters, right? And forgiveness and on and on and on and on and on. So I just think it's the story creates an opportunity for real life discussion, real empowering discussion. And OJ is the bad guy in the story, right? So it puts other people less so much on the defensive, but we get to talk about our values, our morals, our ethics, our perspectives through this interesting anecdote. I'm just a big fan of conversation that goes beyond the surface and the material and some of the things that we see out there. And this icon certainly is a spark, a provocation for very, very, very interesting conversations about celebrity, about selfies, about forgiveness, about society and pop culture and correctional facility and mental health. And we could go on and on and on about all the different topics that can be discussed through the icon. I wasn't put in front of OJ just so I could get a selfie for my celebrity collection. That's not what was going on. What was going on was, and I still haven't figured out entirely what was going on, but there was, to me, I believe that there was something higher level energetically, higher level spiritually, and it has to do with my capacity for love and his starvation. And leaders go first. There's a lot of people that wouldn't get close to OJ because of the stigma, but for some reason, that's not me. I'll get close to any human being on the planet if there's an opportunity to up level the loving vibration. If there's an opportunity to go for the hugular, then I'm in. And what a crazy scenario that was. Yet that's the meaning that I'm going to be making of it. So for those of you that are paying attention, for those of you that join me on Facebook Live, and for those of you that are here with me on Zoom, Get a Clue in 52. I'm really here to tell you guys that I believe that my capacity for love is so large that I'm willing to be vulnerable so that either myself or you may grow. And, it's not for me to judge that guy. I know what I think, but that doesn't mean it's my place to judge him. And if he got anything out of our interaction, if he vibrated a little more loving that day, then right on. And I don't know what else to say about it, but there's a Kluby stack. One of the problems with forgiveness is that it usually requires a guilty verdict. And nobody, that's the part that people want to avoid, is the guilty verdict part.
While you were telling the story, something had come to mind as well on Mind the Gap, on judging and opinion. Could you elaborate on that one?
Well, I think an opinion, very simply, your opinion stays inside your head. Judgment, leaves your mouth.
That's
opinions internal. Opinions are internal. Judgment's external. Opinion is a function of. It's a function of like. Opinions are more closely related to like self-preservation. We form opinions to like protect ourselves, to decide how we want to behave in the world, right? Do we like it? Do we not like it? Does it help us? Does it hurt us? What's my opinion of that? Does it appeal to me? Does it not? So like self-preservation. Judgment though is like lack of critical thinking, or it's an aggressive form of ego defense. One of the people that I texted the OJ pictures to with the same jokes that I texted to everybody else, right? Presenting it in a humorous way. He's like, oh my God, that murderer, I can't believe you even wanted to take a picture with him. And this guy just like the first thing out of his mouth it was like judgment of him and judgment of me that I would even want to take a picture with such a horrible person. And I know right away he's making himself feel better by doing that. I know the guy and I know some of his transgressions, and I can tell you right now, I love everybody, including my buddy, and we've all done stupid stuff in our life, but he doesn't have the right to judge anybody. We all might have our opinions, but he doesn't have the right to judge anybody. Nobody does, I don't think, right?
The question is which motivates which? Does by judging somebody, or rather say observing them, you form an opinion, or observing them get a judgment which motivates the opinion? Yeah, well, you have an opinion that motivates a judgment.
Yeah, man, it's a really tough hair you're splitting, because they're both rather automatic. You know what I'm saying? Ego defense is an automatic. It's like fight or flight response, emotional fight or flight response. It's like when I walk into a spider web, I don't go, what should I do now? I just start freaking out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Right? Same thing emotionally. If information comes along that contradicts my sense of self, I'll attack it or run from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the things about this. Like all of a sudden now, like I was like, do I even post this at all? Do I even share this at all? There are some people that don't that just OJ, boom, shut down. Don't have anything to do with it, rather than understanding or taking a moment to think critically about why would I even bother to share the story? Right. It's not about OJ at all. Right.
Would that be a resultant of whatever information or something that you receive, to filter it and have some lateral thinking along it, and says, how do I, and the bottom line is just approach it with an open mind?
Yeah, critical thinking is tough, right? Most people stay in their subjective comfort zones, right? Most people remain subjective, and it's hard to, ego defense, defending our current sense of self. That's the first responder to every situation. Opinions and ego defense are automatic. Critical thinking, loving, forgiveness, patience, compassion, those things involve work. Hey, Bubba. Hang on a second. You want to come on? Hey, guys, this is Brody.
I'm just trying to give you something. Don't make a whole scene.
R2D2.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you, bud. You want to say hi to the guys? There's Brody, you guys.
Hey, Brody,
Hey.
how you doing?
Hey, Brody.
Why did you have to make a scene?
Because you're here.
He's
All
a
right.
bit shy there.
All So, all right. So, it's funny. It's like, there's, horror movies get made, right? And there are people that love horror movies,
Like Squid Game.
Anyway, like Squid Game, I don't even know about Squid Game. I guess you got to learn that's the new cultural phenomena. But anyway, I just think it's a very fascinating, mixed feeling kind of experience for me. And Sunday nights are my, nights to be vulnerable and read a tip from the book. So I thought this would be a good time to get this off my chest, to talk it out and put the vibration out there and share what I think, the meaning. See, I learned in the book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Write that one down, Suraj. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, that nobody can ever take away from us our ability to decide what something means. And if I couldn't get past surface level, judgment, that's the real easy part. I wasn't there. He didn't drive by me for me to point my finger at a murderer and feel better about myself because there's somebody on the planet that's worse than me. That's not why it happened. That's not the meaning I make of it. Say hello to Karen Wu. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining on the Facebook side. There's Get a Clue in 52. I'm done reading tonight's tip, the 42nd tip overall, and the 10th tip in the sales section. We're going to start accountability next week. And I have gotten done telling my little OJ story. So if you missed it, the beginning, you could watch the replay of this. That's why I'm going live. It's up there for people to watch. I have an OJ story now. And it's, I keep saying it's as hysterically funny as it is spooky and creepy. It's both. It's all of that. A day is light and dark. A coin is heads and tails. The union between my wife is man and female. There's a lot of unit dualities that make this world go around, and it certainly was one of them when the jugular was with the jugular. It's just so weird for me that I've been saying for years and years and years. Some people go for the jugular, but I go for the jugular, and now I have this picture with O.J. Simpson and this experience of having hugged one of the most famous murderers of all time. And it's creepy, spooky, hysterically funny. It's spiritually interesting. And the meaning I'm going to make of it is that there's, this human need for love and forgiveness and critical thinking and compassion. And, there's plenty of people in the world to judge OJ. And I don't think that's my job. And that doesn't mean that I condone him or celebrate him or cheer for what he did, but he's alive, and there's got to be still good he can do in this world. And if nobody gives him a hug or pays attention to him, he's less likely to do any sort of good in the world. So what's it going to be? What would you do if you met OJ? Would you point at him and call him a murderer and turn your back? Or would you tap into your capacity for love and see if you could raise a global vibration one murderer at a time? Ha, 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 ha. Anyway, what's the difference between that and going to a prison and visiting convicts and helping them rehabilitate? What's the difference between donating books to a prison or leading classes or giving talks inside of a prison for people that want to get educated and want to be better people? What's the difference between? And so I don't know what the answers are, but I know that this experience has me asking these questions that are deeper than what am I going to watch on TV tonight? Questions that are deeper than, surface level stuff, for better or worse, right? I got chosen to have that experience and I didn't shy away from it, and it is what it is. So Get a Clue in 52 is, I guess we're in the home stretch here. Suraj, did you have any questions or comments about anything, including the story or tonight's tip?
Yeah, definitely. Don't want to repeat everything that was said, but I definitely don't think that it was a coincidence. I do think that I just was thinking, which one was it? Was it a foreshadow of you hearing he was on the second hole that the universe already knew that you two were going to meet? Or was it because you heard that it was in your system now and you are more aware of your surroundings? And because of that, which one was it, right? Fine line, either way.
It was some form of reticular activation. So we know that, right? When you talk about The Secret or Law of Attraction or whatever,
either way.
I could have very easily not paid any attention to the car. I could have just been waving it by and just turned my head and not looked at all.
Yeah.
But
no, I definitely agree.
Yeah, I was locked in.
Yeah, the energy was there, and I totally 100%. I think that's a very unique story, and I'm glad you shared it. And then I just had a few different insights that I could apply towards my life in certain situations that I've been in. One of the quotes that you said was, "I wouldn't be surprised if the starvation led him that far," when you were talking about him potentially seeing you through the window and
Yep.
then wait, like timing it out, right? So that had my own insight, which I'm going to digest and kind of think over, that I can apply directly to me, and then also just the interaction with just overall in general, and then in terms of the actual tip, the repetition is key, and you must practice and you must apply what you learn. You can't just read, right? Like I apply it to, I could read every single book about how to be a pro basketball player, but if I step on the court, the books aren't going to help me that much unless I'm good at it, right? So you got to apply what you learn and practice. So just a couple of insights that I had from both stories.
Wonderful, you guys. I appreciate that. That's the last thing that you talked about was about tip number 10, just to review for those that are maybe joining late. Tip number 10 is reading is not enough. So like the idea is, all right, we've gotten through 10 tips now, or we've gone through 9 tips in sales, but reading isn't enough. You need to practice and role play, get yourself into a sales training. I love being an independent coach, a supporting coach, my Coach Jeffrey brand, where I'm independently contracted with other, organizations at a training called I Sell. My good friend Damian Elston's created Elston and You Enterprises, EYE, I Coaching and Consulting. And he runs a 5-day sales training that is just like the most incredible experience. I go and I'm paid to go there and to be one of the coaches and trainers. And I learn every time that I'm there. It's like one of the best gigs I get, because I learn all the time when I'm there, from the students, from the other coaches, from Damien. And, it's a special environment to give a lot of good coaching and training. It's one of my favorite things. And so when I wrote this tip, did you guys hear all the things that I described should be in a sales training? I was basically describing I Coaching and Consulting's 5-day event, I Sell, which has been shut down from COVID, but it's going to build back up again when Damien gets his gym built, Capital Fitness, and then they'll be conducting those trainings right there on site at the gym, is what I imagine. But not to get too ahead of myself. But if anybody's interested in a deep dive immersive sales training experience, contact me. We know what needs to be handled when it comes to up-leveling sales professionals. So that having said that, let's get into last call. Charlie, do you have any other comments or questions? Suraj, anybody have any last things for tonight before we wrap up the 42nd installment of Get a Klu in 52 this year, which means the 96th consecutive week that I've come on board to read one tip from the book. This is the 2nd edition now, and I think I might change the categories and change the tips for the 3rd edition of Get a Klu in 52. I'm thinking about 5 new categories and 52 brand new tips. We'll see if I can pull that off. Anyway, for tonight, last call. Any other comments, questions for tonight?
I would just say that, tonight was more of insight rather than discussion for me. And I'm going to digest what I heard and see how I can apply it to my life.
Awesome. That's wonderful, Suraj. It's always great to have you on board. Likewise with you as well, Charlie. Any last comments or questions?
Other than, again, a great session again, and thank you for sharing your story with us. And it's actually, my favorite term, it's got the gears going at 10,000. Like,
yeah.
What was this? I'm trying to get where my own spiritual connection gets in. What did this mean? And trying to, and as Suraj says, there's quite a lot of insight that you have to go and think about it. How do you apply certain things to your life? One that is relative to it is when you taught me about the jugular and hagular, and I'll never forget that day. And I said, Coach Jeff, give it to me straight up. Even if you could punch me through the screen, it's okay, I can take it.
Yeah.
But then you said to me, I don't go for the jugular, I go for the hagular. And that has changed how you can tell it like it is, but then you got to do it with love. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I learned from you.
Yeah, hardcore accountability, but delivered on a plate of I love you.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from you, of which there are a ton.
Yeah, that's wonderful, man. That warms my heart. And that's the other thing too, man. I talk about the integrity game all the time, and how much integrity would I have if I had judgment, hate, or scorn or anything like that towards any human being on the planet. It's just not who I am. So, I'll protect myself at all times, but I'm also willing to be vulnerable when there's an opportunity to be the version of myself that I think that I am. I think I'm one of the most loving people on the planet, and if, even if I've had a couple beers and smoking a cigar and I'm on the golf course, it doesn't mean I take a vacation from my own integrity game. I still have to operate and vibrate with love every minute of the day. That's that's tough to do, but that's how I've challenged myself. So thank you guys for sharing with me on tonight's episode of Get a Clue in 52. We're at 8:55 p.m. Thanks for those of you, those of you that came online on the Facebook side, Mikey and Voltaire and Joni and Karen and anybody else that I've missed. I'm sorry. And to anybody that's watching in the future, put your likes, your shares, your comments, schedule with me if you want to talk it through. It's a really, really, really interesting anecdote that spurs a lot of different thought about a lot of important subjects. So they're all on the table and I'm available to talk with anybody about anything. I love you all. And let's go ahead and seal it with a kiss. You ready there, Charlie? All right. Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Have a great week, guys. Have a great week and all the best.
Good night.
Love you both.
All right.